Hello, I'm Emma-Louise Coffey and you're welcome to the Dairy Edge, the Teagasc Dairy podcast. We're bringing you the latest information, insights and opinion to improve dairy farm performance. On this week's episode, dairy farmer Mike Bermingham joins us to talk about the brave jump from construction to dairy farming and the remarkable progress he has achieved in 10 short years, finding himself in the top 1% of the national dairy herd. And I first asked him what's happening in Knockinanig today.
We're farming here just outside Fermoy, about 5 miles outside Fermoy, and we're milking 108 cows this year. Farming 47 hectares in total, stocked at 2.3. All the calves are contract reared and the heifers are contract reared, so we're just basically milking cows here.
And I suppose why we're interested in chatting to you today, Mike, is that essentially you were a new entrant to dairy farming. And I suppose if we look way back into the noughties, you weren't actually farming. Can you give us an insight into what you were doing and why you made your way into farming?
Yeah, I was building actually. I was a carpenter. I was working. We used to do commercial jobs in the city, shuttering, pouring concrete. Few small jobs in houses, things like that, up to about 2009, and I took over here from my parents in 2009. At the time we were doing calf to beef with about 50 calves and 50 store bullocks, and we'd sell them on, and so I took over that year, and in end of 2009, I suppose I had a good bit of debt on the farm because I paid out the parents. We'd put up we put up a new shed for the waste management. The grant money hadn't come back, so I had a good bit of debt on board at the end of the year, and I had a big asset and I had no way of generating money, so I had to think, how was I going to generate the cash?
And I suppose, and that's where the dairy came into it.
Yes.
And where did the idea come from?
The idea came, look, I was always interested in I was always farming and interested in love farming. And so the idea came, I was in 2007, a friend of mine, Kevin Toomey, was a monitor farmer that year. And look, I went to his monitor farmer meetings and I just liked what I saw, really, to be honest with you. And look, he had a simple system, and look, he was doing well out of it, and I liked that. So as well as that, I was getting burnt out from my job, really, and farming. Then I could work on my own. I prefer to work on my own. I used to work with about 40 people before, you see, and trying to keep them all going the whole time. So the dairy farming, then you could work on your own, you could work your own hours, it was more flexible, let's say. And so we decided we'd go for it.
So then, I suppose, to talk us through the journey, did you start straight away in 2010 in cows?
No. The journey was luck, really. An opportunity came up to go contract rearing heifers for Bill O'Keefe and Connacht. So Bill had 150 calves and 150 heifers he needed rearing, and look, we had enough of land here to do it. So I packed up my job and stayed at home to go rearing those calves and heifers. We used to take the calves off of Bill at a week old, and we'd send them back to Bill at the point of calving. So the contract rearing was a great tool because it kind of it brought together all the stuff that we would be doing for dairy farming, like breeding, grassland management, rearing calves, looking after stock, I suppose, budgeting money, and all that kind of thing. It was a good starting block, for some, without, and we were still getting paid, let's say, so it was good for cash flow as well, like.
And then in terms of building your own herd, how did you start that process?
That started, there was another bit of luck with that as well, really. In 2012 we decided, look, we were going to go at it, and the only way we'd go at it was if we started buying stock, because we'd keep putting it off. So that year we bought 60 calves. We were lucky enough, we bought them out of two herds, out of two very good farmers, John Kingston up by the airport and Michael Welch in Bartlemy. So we were able to purchase stock off of them. So that was our step on the road to dairy farming. So in 2012, we continued on with the contract rearing, and we were rearing our own calves as well that year. And in 13, then we decided we bought another 60 calves off of John Kingston, and we started our development that year, let's say. Well, in 2012 as well, we put in the main network of roads for the dairy farming out of cash flow, let's say. So
I suppose we'll jump into that in terms of infrastructure. You weren't really set up for a dairy farm,
No.
I take it, when you started off. So what, I suppose, infrastructural developments had you to make on the farm across the years leading into the dairying?
Yeah, I suppose, look, we had to do everything really. It was a Greenfield site. All we had really was 2 slatted sheds for and slurry storage. So really we had to do everything. Roads. So in 2012 we put in the roads. In 2013 then we started building our milking parlour, and we fitted 115 cubicles, mats and scrapers into the slatted shed that we had, let's say, and some of those cubicles, there's 40 of those cubicles outdoors. So that's what we did that year. 14, then we started milking our 60 calves we bought first, let's say. So there was 55 of those being milked. And we phased out the contract rearing at the spring of 15, and we milked 103 cows that year. So we kind of tipped away from there. From there on in, we had in 16. Then we added on the calf shed. 17, we topped up all the roads. From let's say in 2012, we did an inverted road. We dug down, got out the stone, and threw in the topsoil, but we'd nothing topped off. So that year, then we topped off all the roads, rolled them, and got them up to a better standard, let's say. And we put in bigger water trucks then in every paddock. So there's a 300-gallon water truck in every paddock, you know.
And I guess, look, this is a very costly thing to do.
Yeah.
And, it might be fairly daunting for somebody who is, thinking of making the jump in maybe the next 12 months. Like, what's your advice in that? Like, I mean, do you jump straight in and do it all? Or would you phase it?
I suppose we phased it here. So, look, really, we've borrowed for the milking parlour and the cubicles, and there was extra slurry storage had to be put in as well that year. So we've borrowed for that. The rest was done out of surplus cash at the end of every year. Let's say if we had a lump of money, if we could get together money, we would do a project. We would take, for instance, put up the calf shed, do the roads, So that's the way we kind of did it. We scrimped and scraped all year, and if we got a lot of money together, we'd invest it back into the business. Like the past couple of years, I suppose we've invested at least 20,000 every year back into the likes of your roads, your water, your calf shed, additional stuff like that, let's say,
And I suppose, before we move away from looking at the infrastructure and the money invested in it, you mentioned when you started contract rearing, it was really good for things like breeding, grassland management,
yes.
But you also mentioned it was really good for, say, money and budgeting.
Yeah.
Did you have particular tools that you used kind of week in, week out?
Look, the first 2 years in dairy farming are the toughest, I think, because milk production is low, but you've huge costs. So every week, myself and my wife Tina sat down and we went through what we had. We checked the bank account. We said what we were going to bring in, who we had to pay, and we kind of managed the money week on week. Really, that's for the first 2 or 3 years is how we managed, and tried to put away a bit. Like, I suppose we made from a family point of view, we made a lot of sacrifices to get the farm up and going. But hopefully we'll be reaping the rewards of that, So that was just the way we did it, I suppose, really.
And I suppose on that, you were saying, production is low in those first couple of years, and I suppose, you made the decision as a new entrant to go with all heifers.
Yes.
Was that the right decision for you?
Look, I suppose now it is. I suppose at the time, look, when you thought back things, we wrote out a small cheque to buy 60 calves, and we were able to cash flow the rearing of them ourselves. So, but when you tot it all up, it was the same thing as if you went out and wrote out a cheque for €1,400 for a cow. But I suppose we didn't have the 14. Like if you asked me on the 1st of March in 2014 to write out a cheque for 50 cows, I couldn't have done it. Whereas I could drip pay away.
It was a drip feed
Exactly,
for the heifers.
Yeah. So that's how that worked out well. But probably a few cows in the system would have been better. It would have helped the cash flow side of things, because the production would have been up, and it would have been a bit better, all right.
And I guess then, in terms of the other things that you mentioned, breeding and grassland management, I mean, we'll get onto the performance again, but what in particular did you take in terms of learnings from working with the young stock that you brought forward into
what we did when I came home in 2010, I got on with Noel Going and Grass Tech, and I learnt. Noel used to come here. I buddied up with another friend of mine, and we did grass measurement. So every second week, Noel would be on either my farm or my friend's farm, and we'd measure the grass, and it was a great tool. It was a great learning experience, for measuring grass and budgeting grass and all that stuff. So I found that was invaluable, actually, just learning about measuring grass and trying to get the most out of it, really, to be honest.
It's something that comes up a lot in terms of grass measuring with the Dairy Edge, and I suppose some people might get slightly fatigued from listening to us talking about grass, but how important is grass to your system?
Sure, it's the only thing, really, to be honest with you. Look, we do feed a lot of supplement here on this farm, but if I can at all, I won't compromise on the grass. Like, the paddock has to be cleaned out properly. We have to get as much grass as possible into the cows. Like this spring now, we only fed 7 bales of silage on wet nights. So it's get as much grass as you can into the cows. It's the best way and the cheapest way of feeding the cow, to be honest with you.
And I suppose picking up, you mentioned grass management. Is there any other, I suppose, things you did to educate yourself on dairy farming along the way?
Yeah, discussion group was the big one, really. I'm in 2 discussion groups. The discussion groups are great for learning and for, I suppose, seeing what other people are doing, really, more than anything else. And then, as well, at the time, we were very lucky. Greenfield was starting out, and Shinagh Farm. So the two of them were 2 huge, I suppose, influences on what we did here. We were I suppose we're not the same system, but we are the same system. But like they were low cost starting out as well, and look. You could really, what they were doing, we were trying to follow, I suppose, in a way, And
I suppose from a practical perspective, the act of milking a cow,
yeah.
Where did you learn that? Was that on day one here when you put the first cluster on?
All right. Look, I did weekend milkings in a couple of places for not much now, to tell the truth. So really, you're right. I suppose day one, the cow calved, we started milking her, so that was it, but they all said we'd be killed with all the heifers, but I'm still standing anyway. So, it was fine.
And I suppose then, if we turn our attention now to your system and what you're doing here day to day, when you started out, how did you decide on what the right system was for you?
Really, like we had a farm, we could grow grass. So really, the system was get as much grass as you possibly could into the cow. So we wanted a spring calving herd, calving around the 1st of February, and trying to get as much kilos of milk solids as we could per hectare, and try and get as long as grazing season as we could. So it was really about, I suppose, the grass. We've a crossbred herd. I suppose at the moment we're calving about 90% in 6 weeks, which is, I think, we're tipping away at that. They're milking well. They're doing 31 litres at 4 473 and 345. They're doing 2.6 kilos of milk solids and 4 kilos a meal. So, look, they're tipping away fine.
And, on that, the crossbred herd, was that the decision day one?
Yeah.
Was that always going to be the cow?
That was always going to be. Look, we were rearing crossbred heifers for Bill. I liked them. They're nice. They're a nice, robust animal. They are easy care. They're easy getting calve. Look, we don't ever get up at night to calve a cow here. This is our 6th season now, and we don't get up at night. They calve themselves. They're easy getting calve. They're robust. They can put up with a bit of torture. Look, they're a nice cow. They're a nice cow, and look, they're delivering plenty of solids. So I know you have the cull price and the calf price, but our business is producing milk and selling milk. So we are not over interested in calves or cull cows, or for me, there's no value to be added to that. It's just move them on as fast as you can, as quickly as you can, and get them out of the way.
And I suppose with the 90% 6-week calving rate, you're very compact.
Yeah.
So we're talking about cows here now on 31 litres today, which means that they're probably not far off peak.
Yeah, I'd say peak this week.
And also there's probably people are probably a big question mark over that 31 litres for a crossbred cow. And is that actually possible? But,
it is,
but you're achieving it. But I mean, you do, we'll bring in the point here that you said that you are supplementing heavy.
We are supplementing heavy,
you're at 4 kilos
We're
today.
At 4 kilos today. Look, our demand at them, we've stocked up the farm to four cows per hectare. Or maybe I've done it a week too soon. The demand is 65. The growth rate last week was only 45, but I'd be hoping that we'll clip the 60, this week, hopefully.
Yeah, so, I did hear people after that heavy rain last week were saying we're going to shoot up to 100.
Yeah, so I don't think we'll hit the 100 here, but 60 now we could go on, 60. I'd be happy enough with 60.
And I suppose supplementation then across the year, what is the budget?
The budget. Look, I'd always tell myself 750 kilos, but it ends up with a ton. Like the past last year, I know with the drought we fed 1.7 due to the drought. But look, normally we're in around, the year before we were at a ton, and the year before we were at 750. That's the kind of where we'd like it to be. But we do have to supplement a good bit in the spring and autumn as well, because it's just a slow start farm. We'll say, growth doesn't really kick off. I'd be watching what curtains are doing, and we'd be generally 10 days behind curtains. So if curtains are growing 70 this week, it'll be a week to 10 days before we'll be growing 70, so. Yeah.
And in terms then of, some people would think supplement is, it's idle feed in that they're not getting the response. And I know I was here I think it was 2017, and there was a heavy response. There was a good response. Yeah. What sort of solids are you achieving on the average
last year we did supplied, I think, 570 kilos roughly, or was it 567 kilos supplied to the co-op. And the year before we did about, I think we did 555 supplied to the co-op.
And I just suppose if we look at that in context, the national average farmer is feeding a ton and they're producing roughly 400 kilograms of milk solids. So I think that, I don't know, should we say it, but it's nearly justified to...
I know. I suppose with us, every week we measure the grass. So, and it just so happens that when it comes up to our discussion group meeting, after the meeting, you'd drop the cows back to 2, and just before the meeting comes up again, they're back up on 4. So so like every week, we'd vary. Like in February, we only fed 2.5 kilos of meal because we'd loads of grass. March, we were on between 3 and 4. 10 days ago there, we just wanted to slow them up, so for the weekend we put them on 5 and we dropped them back to 4 then, and they're at 4 at the moment. So I thought this week we'd be able to cut them back to 3, but we're just not growing enough of grass yet to cut them back.
So essentially you're letting your grass wage guide your supplementation during the year.
Exactly.
Okay. And I suppose then if we look at it, we've discussed milk solids per cow, we've discussed 6-week calving rate. Are there any other major KPIs that you're targeting in the year?
Look, I suppose the one we hope to do about 1,200 kilos of milk solids per hectare farmed. The main one would be the 90% calved in 6 weeks. Other than that, we're trying to grow as much grass as possible. We're trying to grow 14 tonnes of grass. We're in around the 13.5 to 13 to 14 tonnes of grass with the past couple of years. Last year, we were down to 11.5 with the drought.
And what are the main tools that you're using to drive grass growth?
Soil fertility. We soil test the farm every 2 years. We have the P's and K's are up on 4s now at the moment, and the lime is where it should be as well. So really now, since 2000, before I took over, like we used to reseed a field every year, let's say. So we've kept on with that. So really, it's trying to, like the past couple of years, all right, it's every second year we've reseeded. So from now on, we're going to go back to every year reseeding to try and get that extra bit of growth.
And is that the limiting factor, reseeding, or is there anything else holding you back?
I suppose our look at what's holding us back really, we're a north-facing farm, we're about 500 or 600 feet above sea level. It's a bit of a colder farm. Towards the back of it is wet. But look, it is what it is, and it's during the summer then those fields are bombing it, and into August they're bombing it. It's just in the spring it's hard to get go. We're a bit behind in the spring, and in the end of the autumn, the grazing season really finishes up fast. They're around the 15th of November, up to the 1st of November you'll be flying, but there's only 10 or 15 days. This year now we were exceptional. We got to the 25th, I think, before we had to house. But that's kind of where the practice is at. And
108 cows on the milking platform at the moment. Do you see yourselves going any further?
We went up to 115 in 2017, and we managed way fine. We had the calves on the platform as well. We were stocked to 2.6 that year, but we were buying in a lot of silage. We had to buy in 300 bales of silage that year, plus the ton of supplements. So we thought we were purchasing too much supplement in, really. It was a big cost to the business. There was 30,000 a year being spent on silage and nuts. So we thought it was a bit risky, we had a lot of money, and it showed last year that with the drought, because everything went, we had to buy 300 bales of silage again last year. Last year's feed went up to 50,000. So we're just a bit worried about that we're that are we buying the milk really more than the marginal milk as they are.
Yeah, and I suppose that's just a really interesting point. And I know that Joe Patton would have done an awful lot of work calculating out that. And I suppose when you consider those 300 bales of silage, and I mean, you're talking there's 7 extra cows there in 2017. Yeah. Were you solely feeding certain cows silage? And that's just a really interesting reflection on.
That's the way I looked at it now, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
I looked at, if the farm can grow 14 tonnes of grass here and we utilise 85% of it, which would be very, very good going if we could, that'd be 11.9 tonnes. So that means there's 5.2 tonnes of grass available per cow, roughly. And put a ton of meal with that. That gives you what the cow needs for the year, really.
To achieve that high production that you're doing.
Yeah, okay. Exactly.
And I guess if we look to the future then, where do you see the business going, Mike?
Good question. That's the $1 million one. Look, at the moment, I suppose for our system, look, we like a very simple system here. We get our contract rear to rear. We send off our calves at about 6 to 8 weeks to be reared. They come back in December. All we have here is cows. So if we up the cows more, really we have to bring in more feed because there's no land around us available. So is that complicating our system a bit too much? Like if we went up 30 more cows, we'd manage it with our labour on the farm, which myself and my wife. But would we be only buying the milk because we'd have to bring up all the supplement would be coming in from down the road. There'd be more contracting, there'd be more slurry, there'd be more silage, there'd be zero grazing. And I don't know, would that suit our system at all, to be honest.
And I suppose often the comment is where you're introducing all of these things, they're just complications.
Like everything here is simple. Like we start calving the 1st of February, we finish calving, we finished there last week, so around the 15th of April, we start breeding the 1st of May, we finish breeding the 10th of July. You know, it's all, I like to have things in segments, let's say that cows are dry there around the 10th or 5th, the 10th of December, start calving again, and it's just preparation for when the big jobs are coming up, and that's it. Keep it simple.
Reflecting on your 10 years in dairying, Mike, you know, massive performance being achieved on this farm, and you know, in a very short space of time you're hitting all the targets in terms of fertility, production. You know, what are the high points?
Yeah, I suppose being I suppose milking the cows was a high point. I suppose it's I suppose being your own boss, being able to spend time at home with my family. Look, if one of my girls, the two of them are big into playing GAA, Sarah and Kaylee, they'd be playing a school game there now, maybe at 12 o'clock down the pitch. I can shoot off and watch that game. In the evening there, if they're playing a game, look, I can get in a milker to milk the cows that evening and go away and watch their game or spend time with them. Like during the summer here now, for instance, we try to get a lot of our work done before the holidays to kick off, because I find really from July till they go back to school, you're on a go slow, because you come down, you're after milking the cows in the morning, you come back down for your tea, and sure, look, there's an hour or two gone, because you'll be messing around or having a chat, or they'd be planning something and you'd have to listen. And so, you know, like you have time to spend with them, really. I know in the spring you're busy, and look, they're great. Everyone puts their hands to the pump at the spring. You know, the two girls come up and Tina comes up and helps out at the springtime work. But after that, then, like, we're pretty leisurely, to be honest.
So it's the lifestyle dairying is offering.
The lifestyle it's offering. Look, people say that, oh, you're very tired and all this, but look, when I was working out, I went nowhere. Now we're lucky enough, we've relief milkers there for the weekends. They do a great job. They come in, they milk the cows. We can have time off. We can go where we want. We've great contractors. They come in, they do whatever needs to be done. They don't have to be supervised. Do you know, it's a good life balance, work-life balance, I suppose, really.
And for somebody who's listening today and they're thinking, this is actually what I want to do and this is what I've been thinking of, have you 2 or 3 top tips for them starting out?
I suppose plan it out well, really. Look, when we were lucky enough, we got a lot of help doing our 5-year plan at the start, what we were going to do and how we were going to do it. And so that's number one anyway, is have a plan. I suppose number 2 is have someone you can make contact with to talk about the silly things that you know, look, you might be afraid to bring it up at a discussion group meeting that there's something, this cow has mastitis or cell count issue or something, because you might say, oh, sure, you know, you're foolish, but everyone has those problems. Like they are very common problems, and you know, you'll get help. So a good mentor is worth anything, you know. And I suppose the discussion group as well is a great tool. You know, you can see what's happening on the ground. Like the last day, you know, I went to a meeting and you'd say, look, you're going to much years, what are you learning? I saw a guy, and for the springtime, like back fencing is an issue here, you know, to try to get the cows back to the water. So your man put the water truck out in the middle of the road, and all he had to do was open his gap down along, and the cow could walk out to the road, get her water, walk back in again. She could take away the water truck when you were onto the main grazing season. But I just thought it was a good tip, to be fair, you know, and it worked very well. He could give them their block of grass for their grazing, and you know, you could back fence and they had access to water. They could just walk up the lane a small bit to get their water. I thought it was a brilliant thing.
And I think just to wrap up, Mike, the 3 tips you have is plan well, and I suppose you're working with people on that 5-year plan. Identify a mentor and your discussion group. So all of your tips are centered around people, and it's people are going to help you along the way.
Yes, it is only for people. Like, you'll be nowhere. Like, it's about a good team around you too. Like your vet, your contractors, your bank, your accountants. like they're all very important people, and you know they have to, like, I suppose I can guess, like I tell everyone everything we're doing, like, you know, you can get input in from people, you know, so you can make a decision again, like, you know, someone else might have a different view on it, and you know, you can think about it then, what's their view, and you know, it might make your own decision better.
Yeah,
you know,
and I suppose, look, we can't underestimate how good people are in the industry, and farmers are so willing to help. And I think, like, you yourself are a mentor to many people. You mightn't know it, Mike, and there's, you know, most farmers actually are, and it, you know, it mightn't be officially identified as that, but you know, I suppose we need a little help from our friends. Isn't that it?
That's it.
Thanks very much, Mike.
No hassle, Emma-Louise, thank you.
And that's it for this week's episode of the Dairy Edge podcast, and my thanks to Mike Bermingham for joining me on this week's show. Don't forget to subscribe on Apple and Google Podcasts as well as Spotify, and for more information go to the Teagasc website at teagasc.ie. I'm Emma-Louise Coffey, and join me next time for your Dairy Edge.